Hello and welcome to the Great Cosmic Shift. This is Cyrus Kirkpatrick. Now, I haven't made a video in a little while because I've been kind of catching up with things now since I'm back in town. But on this video, I want to talk about, specifically communications with the Arcturans. Now, if you go on the internet, you will find a lot of information about the Arcturans. This is an article that I wrote up that was going to be posted around the internet. However, for some reason, Facebook didn't like it very much. And so when I attempted to post this on my own community, this is what came up. So I was actually flagged, and this never happens when I post on my own community with no links and no evidence that it's actually spam. It would seem that saying the word medical bed actually gets you flagged off Facebook. Isn't that convenient? So disseminating knowledge like this is apparently a no-go. Oh, maybe it's fake news. Well, that's the funny thing, is I get this information from direct channeling, direct mental syncing, as it's known, which is think of it as a phone call. That's how clear it is. And what I'm told is that those are trigger words on Facebook. So if you talk about things like technologies that can put pharmaceutical companies out of business, this is not stuff that they allow. It's probably not stuff that YouTube allows either. However, at the same note, it's pretty easy to skip around that. You just have to call it regen beds. So I'm going to take a stab at this again, and I'm also going to post it here on Facebook because basically I would like to just get some knowledge using these telepathic seeking powers that I acquired in about the last year and a half. Although I've been having experiences like this, for many years, but given how advanced it is now for me, I would like to keep approaching it more as a journalist, because a good journalist is going to look for the answers. A good journalist isn't going to go into the spectrum of turning it into a religion. And that's also what I'm going to talk about as I walk through exactly what this Arcturan leader told me about, and also go over through his words, not my words, a little bit about the channeled information on the internet that actually relates to Arcturans, the Ashtar, the Galactic Federation of Light, and all of that. What it really means, what's really going on with all of it, and how we can navigate that world. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and roll that intro. Okay, and welcome back. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into this communication. Again, this is channeling, and we'll be talking about the Arcturans. We'll be talking about the Galactic Federation of Light, the Ashtari, all topics well known about on the internet. And my foray into this coming from a position as a journalist. Now, if I sound a little bit hoarse, I'm actually getting over a cold, so I apologize about that. In fact, because I'm a little bit more quiet, I'm going to turn the audio up on my microphone by a decibel point, and that might make it a little bit easier to hear me in case I sound a little bit quiet. Of course, if I speak up too much, I become overmodulated. Again, audio is not my specialty in media. I'm not a big audio guy. I have a buddy out there who is a big audio guy, but he's too expensive. So let's go ahead and begin. It's a little up too high. I'm going a little overmodulated. I'm going to put it back down 1 point. Okay, so here we are. So a message from the 7th Density Arcturan Leadership: how to build regen beds that could regenerate people's bodies, and clearing up important details on the internet. So I begin the article. This is me speaking. You can find this when it finally does get posted on afterlifetopics.com. And before I go any further, don't forget that this is a new project. My normal channel is called Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics. It was also hacked. Very interesting how that goes. My Gmail was hacked, passwords changed mysteriously. So I cannot access my Gmail, which means I cannot access my YouTube account, which means that whole channel is kaput. Although there's a lot of old info on that channel, I'm remaking everything. So it's very critically important that you subscribe to this channel. I do have a Patreon working again. I re-accessed my Patreon. My Patreon is actually patreon.com/Afterlife Topics. That's Afterlife Topics with an A. As I also am an author concerning topics about life after death, which, when you think about it, is where so much of this path leads to. Is what is our destiny in the cosmos, and how do we objectively get at the truth through direct communications with the beyond? And that's what I care about. There's also some very cool posts on Afterlife Topics on Facebook about fairies and encounters with fairies. That's going to be a whole upcoming video as well, and how it ties in to all of this, the entire magical spectrum of reality that the Arcturians love to talk about as well. As for the Patreon, I will probably be doing classes again, which is a live sort of like telepathy training, as well as basically group classes, discussions about all of these subjects for people who sign up onto Patreon at the $20 level and up, and it'll also help the work. Okay, so again, I keep feeling I need to clear my throat. I had a little cold going around, but that's okay. We all get colds. It's nothing to be ashamed about. Some people I know are ashamed about getting colds. They never admit when they're sick. Like, I'm not sick. I'm perfectly healthy. I don't get sick. No, colds are a part of nature. Let's see how I'm doing on the audio. Okay, so I was inspired by a poster pointing out that most channelers do not provide nuts and bolts tangible SHIT that can help in direct ways. Then I realized, yes, how come all these communications by bloggers to the Ashtar, the Galactic Federation of Light, the Arcturians, the Aldebarans, all of which are real communications, appear so uniform, non-specific, and extremely reverent? Well, honestly, my communications are direct, implant enhanced, and loud as a bell. In contrast, many others in communication seem to be filtering so much of it through elements of their imaginations, quote, filling in the gaps with things that make sense based upon a set of preconceived beliefs. Now, as a journalist who can also channel and speak directly, I feel it's my job to bash through all of that and find a better angle. So really, I'm trying to say, there's been a lot since the 80s, like Ashtari, UFO compounds, people praying to the Ashtar. I began talking to the Ashtar last year. I know a lot about them because it turns out that's my, let's call it starseed. I'm an Ashtari starseed. Being an Ashtari starseed means what? Well, I'm part of an Ashtari collective, and I know a lot about them. You know, discovering I was an Ashtari starseed is interesting because I never took the Ashtari seriously. I knew about the 1977 mass broadcast transmission with Vrillon back in 77 in England, and I thought this was a very cool paranormal event. I never thought of myself as being connected to the Ashtari. So let's say I've been on a long roller coaster ride discovering what the Ashtari are all about. They look kind of like me. They're usually like a couple inches shorter, kind of slim build, and they kind of look like me. They kind of look like elves like me. Okay. For example, across the internet we find channeled messages from the Ashtar who work with angels. In fact, the Ashtari really do work with angels, and that includes the Archangel Michael, just like all the channelers talk about. So I suppose it's why the huge Wikipedia article on the Ashtar refers to them as a UFO religion, right? So this doesn't seem like a very nice pronouncement, does it? Well, the Ashtari are very real. I talk to them frequently, and they often say the interpretations of what's going on through the online channelings is a, quote, big problem. Namely, the aspects where they are seen as a religion. They describe their Wikipedia article as massively embarrassing. The next issue concerns the lack of direct knowledge that can be used to immediately create benefit for mankind. Can't they provide schematics about creating one of those regen beds? I figure since I became a telepath syncing, likely better than the throes of channelers on the internet do it, why not tackle this as a journalist and not as an acolyte? Okay. So I decided to approach this subject to some friends I talked to who are quite in alliance with the Ashtari. And these are the Arcturans. These are the blue ETs with the almond eyes. You can find them all over the internet. Now, this is a direct mental syncing. It sounds like talking on the phone. And of course, what results is a very funny exchange. Not to mention the regen bed information sounds very interesting to me. So let's continue. Now I'm going to, from here, speak as Michael Beckwith. And this is an Arcturan, or the Arcturan leader. And before I begin reading the article, I'm not going to be channeling him. I'm going to be reading the article where I was in communication with him before and reading off what he wrote. But before I do it, I'm going to clear my throat because, again, I'm kind of congested. It's going to be a lot of talking to do. I'm trying to do it without having to make a cut and put this into my video editing suite. So just give me a second. And I'm back. Good. Now I can get through this. I should have had a cup of water here, but it's going to be some talking. But this is some interesting stuff, guys. Main contact, Michael Beckwith. The human name for the actual ruler. Check the audio. The human name for the actual ruler of 1.4 trillion Arcturans who take extreme care over planet Earth. He has been in contact with others before on the internet, including messages from the Arcturan, quote, beings of love and light, which is like a blog online. Beckwith writes, you may find my influence on Gaia TV. Popular to contrary belief, we are not beings of light so much as little funny blue-skinned people. However, we can manifest this way to help people in the spiritual sense, so let's continue. And as for Beckwith, I may mention this later, but he was born in, I'm not sure when he was born, but he died in 1989. So he was a pastor living in Plano, Texas, and he lived his life as a human, but was actually a splice-in from the Arcturan civilization as the actual leader of the Arcturan civilization, and was a pastor in Plano, Texas, who died in 1989, went back to his people. So writing now is Beckwith of Arcturus. Beckwith says, first of all, some of this UFO religion fiasco is out of hand on your world. You see, I have worked with hundreds of people before, and a couple of them wrote books that are known. If you Google Arcturus messages, channelings, and so forth, there are so many. Why? We are hard at work all the time doing this type of thing. Your world is often called the lower earth. What a trip. It's so hard to rescue your planet. It's a giant psychological prison is what it is. I've lived a whole lifetime on your world. I became a pastor in Plano, Texas. Like everyone else who sneaks around, I have to work within the paradigm of the collective consciousness framework that would never ever allow me to come clean about who I am openly, or I'd be pelted by so much psychic energy I'd surely be destroyed. You can never ever screw around with the collective consciousness that rejects someone or is so overly excited by someone it causes a mass psychic energy bombardment. And this This is why, speaking as Cyrus, there was so much covert operations happening, with so many from the stars living here but are unable to reveal who they are. This shift, the mass awakening, is when they begin to reveal who they are, which requires a collective consciousness integration, which takes a series of precise steps and is not easy, but that's the goal. I think I have to cough again. And I'm back. So before we begin with some design specs for a basic regen pod technology, some may wonder, among so many who communicate, why is young Cyrus bringing people forth in their true voices? I would say it's because of his journalism background. Isn't that funny? This is what I mean about the UFO religion aspect. For you see, although a religious man I am, I would not ask people to turn the Arcturian beings of light into their source of faith. No. What happens is we talk about faith and spirituality, and then people immediately worship us and our Ashtari neighbors from the Andromeda galaxy and others as gods. This is all over your internet. And yes, I do reference that Wikipedia article about the Ashtar, which is somewhat embarrassing to me. Well, don't do it. Do not worship us as gods. Worship God as God. It's so hard to get this message across because certain people drop to their knees and immediately revere a sacred experience with us, and they translate all of that through the prism of their holy, revered experience with us onto the internet. So now, this impression comes along that the Ashtari are angels. Oh, well, angels are real, and some Ashtari are angels now. Archangels, even. People communicating with archangels, oh, guess what? That's often real. You know who hangs out up here? Myself, the Ashtari archangels, and the archangels Michael, Gabriel, and others. Yes, it's a whole smorgasbord of crazy galactic divine forces. Great. You might catch us all playing poker or something. But Cyrus is like an Arcturian. Why? He just forces through all of it, sees souls as who they are, and is extremely irreverent in a positive way. More like he just communicates as is, not afraid to demonstrate if someone has a pithy sense of humor or is, God forbid, politically incorrect. A lot of us are. Well, let's take a moment to pause and kind of like absorb all that information, because already it's like information overload, and besides I can cough again because I'm feeling raspy. I should have got some hot tea. I'll get some constant comment when this is done. When I was a kid, I thought it was called constant comet flying over. Reminds me of the comet I saw in the sky last night. Oh wait, the comet I saw in the sky last night was 20 feet above my head. So that's not normal, is it? So I saw a huge orb of light go by last night. Why? Because I was being visited by somebody. And that's what happens when you start mentally syncing to all kinds of forces out there. Let's take a look at my audio. I feel like my audio can go up a little bit because it was over-modulating and now it's under-modulating. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay. So finally I have to get this off my chest. What about the Galactic Federation of Light? It's all over the internet. I've been dealing with the Galactic Federation in our Gemini galaxy for 2.5 billion years. That's how long it has been around. It's over-modulating again. Thanks everybody for putting up with this. So who is the Galactic Federation of Light? They're the Mundro people. They have sort of purple skin and wear funny hats. They are not your gods either, but they consider themselves the power and prestige of the higher density galaxies. So they make contact too with your channelers and feel that presenting themselves as supreme and wondrous light beings is the only way to get through to people's culture. Hey, sometimes it works. So that's the truth revealed at last about the Galactic Federation of Light, who are again all over the internet. But they're not beings of light either. Again, you might see me up here playing poker with them. They do not have dominance over our galaxies. They are just a major force of power and diplomacy. They may have presented themselves to Earth as supremely wondrous beings, but we should never subscribe that to anyone, not even Jesus Christ, a man who had many regrets. Let's not forget somebody like Beckwith would have been around during those days. We always walk a path in our own Holy Spirit and must present compassion even to those who seem so far above us, as often they are also souls with desires, struggles, regrets, challenges as well. We must respect even a higher being and at times see them as equals to ourselves by respecting our own inner divinity, which is so important. Okay, next thing to speak about. Ashtari do not wear Galactic Federation jumpsuits. The Mundro do not have that much power. I think this is in response to material on the internet that talks about how the Ashtari are part of the Galactic Federation and wear their insignia and wear their suits. From what I know about the Ashtari, not in a million years. Should your people stop revering the Galactic Federation on the internet? No. They are also cool. Their home world is planet Pisces Prime on the 7th density. You know what it reminds me of? A little bit like Coruscant of your Star Wars Legends, except not nearly so overpopulated. Imagine that. It's beyond your imaginations. That's how awesome Pisces Prime is. Anyone reading will have opportunities to do things like enter space tourism industries and even go to those worlds. When? Oh, in your lifetime. That's the shift that we speak about. But the Galactic Federation does not need to be revered as space gods. Also, human society did not originate among the Lyrae stars. Human society originated from Andromeda and the Ashtari. The ancient Ashtari colonized the Aldebaran star system, which then helped colonize your world with Ashtari as well. The higher density Lyran star system is comprised of Lyrans. They are cute and they have round eyes. Okay, one more thing. I see on the internet channeling the 9D Arcturans. It's just mistranslations. The highest density is 7D. So yes, channeling 7D Arcturus is just perfect. It's true. We are on the 7th density. But what does that even mean? Not what you think it means. 7 densities is a term that relates to a physics-based composition of molecular structure. It does not mean that there are 7 densities. There are actually 7 densities and 4 density structures. Oh God, now it's so confusing. Let's put it this way. There are 4 universes sandwiched on top of each other in literal superimposition. If you move up to a higher density, it means your mind is now higher density and can handle such an environment. What's that mean? A higher energy environment. That's it. Well, that's not it. Yeesh, is this complicated. This is why it's so hard to get this information straight online, because you literally need a multi-year degree to understand these things. Okay, so I'm going to take a pause there. I'm going to cough. I'll clear my throat. Again, it's like major information. It's like, what does this even mean? Well, what that means is all over the internet we hear about the densities all over the internet, and they're always talking about what this is, as it's known to me, is we're the bottom density. Higher densities it's our same universe pancaked on top of 4 different layers. The higher density, though, is described in esoteric literature as a universe where it's like the very spirit reality that we know and our physical reality are more merged together. It creates a very different experience than our universe. Every single UFO that we see, all of it comes from the higher density. We are actually considered fourth density. Below fourth density is, well, I'm told we used to be third density, and life was even harsher back then. We were very, very dense. We were a very thick structure of low energy, very hard to experience magic in life. When you get up to the fifth density, which is what our world is becoming, it becomes a different experience. A lot is better. I'm told sexuality is actually like, right now we experience it like this, and if you go up to the fifth density, it becomes like this. It's like it's a big deal. Everything that's an energy-based exchange goes up, and a lot of people gain powers. Imagine being able to do things like teleport yourself around. It's like, this is the higher density cosmos. It's also a place many of us go to when we die. That's where all the UFOs come from. So with that stressed, and I still need a drink of water so bad, but we're gonna get through this. Okay. So I ask, Mr. Beck, with all that said, we'll continue this communication to go into some technical specs for digital or regen pod technologies. Okay, so basically I'm shifting the conversation to go into the regen pods, which are the technologies that we hear about a lot. Emery Smith is a guy who has talked a lot about this, because he's done work in the secret space programs, literally designing these. In this case, he was working for the Cabal without realizing it. Very, very bad groups connected to our Earth. And I do say connected. I don't mean literally the secret space programs that you might have heard about on Gaia TV. A lot of this stuff comes from off-world and from a planet that's like our planet, because there's some wild stories out there. But it's important to point out that this is a major hot button topic on the internet, and I'm like, let's put the pedal to the metal. And when I wanted to do that, funny things began happening to my devices, funny things began happening to my internet, and then this kind of stuff starts happening. Big freaking surprise. So let's try to get this info out there and be sure to share it. Beckwith says, firstly, your world is still under the grip of horrible mafias. Why does this information get seldom released? People can end up dead. Low resource energy systems to solve carbon fuel crises, or technology to upend the massive for-profit medical system on your prison planet can result in assassinations, hackings, and many other issues. So please be very mindful. I'm putting an asterisk here, a MEDICAL pod. This is a cellular regeneration pod. You can theoretically live indefinitely in terms of the threat of normal wear and tear and age by using medical pods. They're safe to use. You just go in them, turn them on, and you feel kind of staticky. They can indeed cure cancers and other diseases while in them, with the exception of complicated diseases like certain blood cancers. Again, we're keeping it real on this channel, unfortunately. Or autoimmune diseases. These all require special care even in here in our crazy science fiction reality. Okay, 1 second. Okay, we're good to go. To create a MDICAL pod, you need a cryotank. Go to one of those companies that hilariously offer cryogenic preservation, which is the greatest waste of money I can think about, and steal one of those cryogenic capsules. Open it up, and here is what gets tricky to try to get through due to certain limitations of mental syncing telepathic communications that can scramble messages in order to prevent unfair advantages. I've talked about that. But this is his way of trying to get these schematics to me, so let's try it. You need to get about 6 ounces of thallium, which is an extremely electrically conductive metal. Just don't eat it. it's rather poisonous. You then need a cellular deoxidization mechanism. Well, this gets fun to try to get through. What is biological oxidation reduction? So now he quotes a academic paper that there's a link right here, jackweston.com, something biological oxidation reduction. Look it up on Google. In a redox reaction, one of the reacting molecules loses electrons and is said to be oxidized, while another reacting molecule gains electrons, the ones lost by the first molecule, and is said to be reduced. To put it in simple terms, which is sort of impossible, a field must be generated using highly conductive metal that is producing deoxidization reactions continuously in a body. Deoxidization reactions, of course, could relate to what you think of as antioxidants in fruits and vegetables. Well, I'm sorry to say, while berries are healthy, that's not enough to regenerate a body. So long as a strong, continuous deoxidization process is affecting cells, the cells will be triggered into a constant state of full reparation based upon genetic coding, whereupon your body automatically knows how to regrow a limb. For example, when you're in the womb, the process of gestation shows how a fertilized egg becomes a full baby. Understanding how to trigger that reaction in the body outside the womb, outside of being a gestating fetus, is the trick to creating a medical bed, and a scientific advancement that has not been formally discovered, and this is fun, could be formally discovered from reading this post, and could earn you billions of dollars and Nobel Prizes. And when the right thinker reads the above content, you can just reference Mr. Lord Arcturus, otherwise it needs to get out there. The basic concept, and using a field array form to trigger this process using deoxidization process in the body, so suddenly a missing arm just starts growing back as if you were in the womb again. That ends communications with Reverend Michael Beckwith, who died in 1989 in Plano, Texas, and returned as High Commander of Arcturus. Don't forget to subscribe to The Great Cosmic Shift. It'll help. So that's actually it for the article. So I would say, obviously, what we can gain from that as well is specific design specs for creating these types of pods. Now, what Beckwith is saying is that this is stuff that hasn't been discovered yet, or formally discovered, but it has been known about in the deeper underground levels of, quote, government. And how do you do it? Well, one thing is you don't want to end up like me when I was getting chased around by a group that was trying to assassinate me. And if you didn't see that video, I actually have that video, or I have the image on my, here we go. Yeah, you don't want to end up like me being chased around by this guy, because that's what can happen to people. But not so much anymore, because where am I? Yeah, I was just up. Anyway, you don't want to end up getting chased around by one of those guys, but at the same time, those guys are out. From everything I understand, these Kabbalists, these occult forces, these really evil mafias are on the underground being completely destroyed right now. So that's why I can make a video like this. That's why I'm told I can make a video like this. I don't care about making $1 billion off of it or winning Nobel Prizes. If this works, it kind of goes down to you guys taking a leap of faith, those with the scientific, biological, engineering backgrounds, trying to turn something like that into a specification that makes sense and can be turned into reality. What makes the most sense to me is really the idea of a gestating fetus, and that gestating fetus actually being shall we say, in a full-grown adult body being mimicked, because it's about being able to, through cellular imprinting, regrow your own body. I mean, lizards do it when you cut off a tail. We have that power in our bodies. It just has to be activated, and that's what these beds do, and that's what we need to build. This is Cyrus with the Great Cosmic Shift. Hope you like this video. Leave comments down below and tell me what you think.